Welcome to Making Sense of the Madness. We're going to be spending the full hour on transhumanism, cybernetics, and beyond with Mike Sygula of truththeory.com. It's going to be a deep dive. You're not going to want to miss it. Buckle up and get ready to make sense of the madness. For those that have been following my work for some time, you know that transhumanism has been a topic that I've covered for almost 2 decades. And I am still one of the few people that has never bought into the Musker nuts himself, Elon Musk. And by the way, folks, if you're really paying attention, he continues to show his true colors, as it was reported just this week that he will openly be building the new spy satellite network for the Defense Department in conjunction with SpaceX, which has really already put up quite the surveillance system, not only with the Starlink satellites, that's largest dish concentration is in Ukraine for the warfare and the communications there, but also the DARPA program's Blackjack satellites as well, which I believe to be an extension of the Star Wars program, not the movies, the Reagan-era Strategic Defense Initiative program that first began to openly weaponize space. I know it's a mouthful. We're going to be talking about all that and more with Mike Sygula. He is of truththeory.com. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Before we get started, let's get a little background on yourself. How did you come into this type of information, transhumanism, etc., and why is it a focal point of your work?
Hello, Jason. Thanks for having me. So to me, I see transhumanism as a massive problem for society. I think this is one of the biggest dangers for the 21st century. And we are hearing quite a lot of positive things from people such as Ray Kurzweil, for example, who are proponents of these types of movements. But I see where this can go out of hand. And I would say this is one of the most dangerous things probably that everyone should start thinking about now before it's too late. And, a lot of people think that, these types of invasive technologies such as Neuralink, they will be optional, perhaps, for someone who might be willing to have such technology installed. But if you think about it, if you look at the earlier version of such technology, such as your smartphone, currently try to have life without using a smartphone. If you are living in a society, you want to get a job, you need to have a smartphone, right? This is pretty normal. So imagine the situation a couple of years from now where enough people start using these technologies, and we know that many people will line up to have a microchip installed in their brains. And if certain group of people or one country or a few hundred, few thousand people get upgraded, start having quicker access to internet, additional memory, they become way more productive, then everyone who is not using such technologies stays behind. And I think what might start happening is that we will be forced to use these devices and these technologies if we want to function in a society. Let's say potential employer will choose to hire someone who is way more productive than someone else, right? So a lot of people think this might be optional, but I think we might actually see a situation where this will become a norm, and then you won't have a lot of options unless, maybe live off grid or move to a different country or something like that.
Well, let's start with Kurzweil. Okay, because I think it's important for people to realize this is really the godfather of what modern day transhumanism is. And his first book on the matter was back in the late 90s, also did a lecture tour, The Age of Spiritual Machines. Now, with Kurzweil, he talks about not only this technology as you're talking about the human brain interfaces, or also brain computer interfaces, BCIs, in a surgical sense, but he says eventually these are going to be nanobot technology within your body that actually turn off your senses and put you into this virtual world. Now, if that is the case, it may not be optional at all. And many people say, well, I'll have to have surgery. That's not where this technology is actually headed openly in not only the writings of people like Kurzweil, but also people like the Rand Corporation that have talked about EEG waves and mind manipulation through these non invasive methods. And then let's also talk about the brain computer interfaces that are already commercially available that you can wear on the outside of your brain and program them. This is something that, for instance, I just had somebody on earlier in the week. They were at the NVIDIA conference. Again, this technology has been around commercially for well over a decade, but he was training an AI via one of these headsets. On top of that, the military has utilized this technology to control and launch swarms of mini drones that are controlled by soldiers' brains. This is technology now that we are seeing. We really don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but we do know we have a long-standing history of advanced technology being classified from the public and often hidden for decades, Mike.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, already we see some of the earlier versions of these technologies. But to me, one of the, because we can talk about, yes, people think this will be optional, but maybe the situation will turn that people will be forced to have it. And then you have many different issues here. First is your privacy, because you have zero privacy if you have a device that measures your activities, biometric data, analyzes your thinking patterns and things like that. So you suddenly have absolutely no privacy. And now I can switch off my smartphone, even though it's probably spying on me, but still I can go somewhere to the forest, switch off my smartphone, leave it at home, and I have some privacy. If you have these types of technologies like Neuralink, where you have a microchip installed in your brain, you have zero privacy. Imagine that, Chinese citizen starts criticizing the Chinese Communist Party just by thinking something about them, and the algorithm picks it up straight away and knows that they're already, having some illegal thoughts about their rulers. So first thing is privacy. Now, one of the craziest things in my view is that you are becoming completely hackable. So you basically become some like a robot, right? And what is really, really crazy is that these guys like Musk or Kurzweil is the guy who talks about the technological singularity a lot, which is this idea that maybe, according to his predictions, around 2045, the AI will become so advanced that with our biological brains, we would not be able to understand it or control it or comprehend it. So the only way for us to continue is to merge with these types of technologies and then have additional memory, which is digital. But who would want to merge, and how can you think you can control something that is million times more powerful than you? And one of another things where I don't see any logic here is where what Musk is talking about. So he says all the time how dangerous AI is. He compares it to nuclear weapons, things like that. but then he wants to connect your brain to a network which obviously will be linked to AI, or AI can have an impact on that network. So to me, this is completely flawed logic, and I'm very surprised that no experts are questioning what he says here. What do you think about that? Like
Well,
he
when we
talks
talk
about, yeah.
Well, let's first of all let's talk about his version of the brain computer interface, right? Again, this is something that's hardwired. He tried to sell to the public as a robot kiosk in a mall is going to give you brain surgery in 6 hours, etc. But we've had these type of devices really going back 50, 60 years when we talk about our DARPA programs, et cetera. And that's what we know about. In other words, we've already had interfaces with people that were able to control keyboards and type on them to people many, many decades ago. What we're seeing now, I think, is the commercialization of that process. I also often talk about Dennis Bushnell, who up until this summer was the chief scientist over at NASA, around since pre-Apollo during the Gemini days, and him openly talking about in 2011 that they had already installed brain chips in 10,000 people, and in 2018 saying it was 200,000 people. So when we hear about the FDA in 2024 and this first patient, we have to understand that's for Neuralink, because we also have BlackRock Neurotech, right? At first, they sold it to us and really continue to sell you on the idea, not only that it will be optional, but it is going to make the blind see again. It's going to make the paralyzed walk again. It is going to repair brains from things like PTSD. Now, when we get into that aspect of it, alarm bells should really go off, because now we're talking about maybe not physical ailments, but certain brain chemistries, and we should just trust the science. But let's take it a step further. As you said, Musk has openly talked about this being a device that will give you instant information. You'll be able to listen to Taylor Swift in your head, and you'll be connected to all these other people. So that's a commercial device. When you look at everything else that guy is involved with, he's involved with the Defense Department up and down. He's part of the military industrial complex. That's why he's so rich. And he's also on every sustainability agenda you could imagine. He's in on the climate hoax. He's in on the carbon credits. Tesla's not just a car company behind that agenda, but he's talked about what? The tiny homes. He's also utilized Tesla to partner with CureVac to build the micro factories that printed up the hate and lies shots, which is the first bio nanotech, aka gene therapy, to be widely introduced to the human populace on the level it was. In other words, the first steps of transhumanism that was into humanity that most people haven't even realized yet. So right now, I think we are on the total wrong path for this technology. And really, a lot of these big tech companies that are going to be utilizing it have already shown themselves, such as Google with their first AI product. We're going to take a quick break. I want your response on the other side. We're going deep. We're going deep into transhumanism, big tech, and really the agenda, not just for a transhumanist future, but if you do listen to guys like Kurzweil out there, who did write The Age of Spiritual Machines, The Singularity, The Coming Singularity, that's the title of the book. It is a post-human future. It is a post-carbon world. We're going to talk about that and much more. Back with Mike Sygula after this. It's Making Sense of the Madness.